Mika spent the next few hours trying to gather data and information. She was going to need to make a very lengthy journey, and if that be the case, it would be best to be informed. Just because you have a star chart with the destination on it doesn't mean you know everything. There are countless things in the universe other than habitable planets and societies. There are myriads of astrological phenomenon in between. Things that can be exceptionally dangerous or exceptionally helpful given certain circumstances. For instance, in combat situations, if you're outgunned and outmatched, normally you're kind of screwed. But if you're smart or lucky, you might find a way to evade the conflict, shift things to your favor, so that their numbers don't matter as much, or so that you can escape altogether. For example, nebulas, basically just swirling clouds of gas that float in space, basically stars that haven't become stars yet, have dense levels of elemental gases and tend to have energy fluctuations and surges throughout them. A bunch of things that really mess with all forms of sensory technology, including sight. Basically, once you go into one, you're next to blind in all senses of the word. So basically, if you're in a dogfight and you fly into a nebula, the only form of navigation that you'll have is whatever knowledge you have about the nebula and its size itself, its general shape, and the distance since you entered, meaning that navigating yourself within the nebula comes down to remembering when you entered and setting a destination on where you're leaving the nebula. And with any number of infinite directions you can travel, there's no way that anyone can pinpoint the exact location that you'll exit the nebula. They'll lose you completely. And that's if you don't find some way to attack them while they're in it. Fighting a battle inside of a nebula is a dangerous game, where everything can turn on its head in a moment's notice. And that's only one of a million astrological phenomenon that can drastically change the course of any conflict. Asteroid fields, black holes, and countless other phenomena needed to be noted on their journey. So Mika got to work on collecting information to enhance their star charts. It would take up more data space, but with the new memory bank units that she ordered for the ship, it wouldn't be an issue. Mika's little shopping trip solved many problems that would have been insurmountable with the resources from the old ship. If she was doing her job as captain, she'd need to take advantage of them. After doing a fair amount of searching and bartering with information brokers, Mika was able to collect a very large amount of data on all of the spatial phenomenon that she might come across in her journey. After which, they began their return trip to Exovol, where Mika could relax in her own room whilst looking over the data pad for the new crew members that she hired on. All of the members that had left had been removed from the roster, leaving only her official crew members left. It was going to be a long and tedious process to sort through them and fairly judge their experience in order to assign them rank and status. Mika and Raimi entered the lift that took them to the construction dock, where they'd be able to enter the ship via a docking station. But as they exited the elevator, they saw a surprising sight. While the rest of the crew had scattered off, leaving, the two engineers that Mika had chosen to start Exovol's redesign process were still there in the docking bay, seeming to have some kind of argument over design. Okay, listen here, little girl. I'm the one with the experience here, and when it comes right down to it, having solid defenses is more important than offensive capability. The alignment you're suggesting may boost maneuverability and speed, but it cuts our defensive capabilities by more than 20% and leaves far too many systems vulnerable to attack. What is it with old people? Always trying to make everything slow going. Listen, in combat situations, maneuverability is everything. Having the speed to run down an adversary that's trying to get away, or get away from an adversary that's chasing you, is more important. You have to be able to maneuver effectively. There's no use in having better armament if you can't get away when you need to, maneuver yourself out of bad situations, or stay on par with quick ships. All having a higher armor level will do for you at that point is increase the number of shots that you take before you blow up. The design elements are clear here. The captain also said that we'd be taking on countless different kinds of missions, not just war ones. Battle isn't the only thing we have to be concerned about. The design you're suggesting would highly limit the ship's other capabilities. For instance, the docking and undocking capabilities for smaller transport vessels, shipments of goods and things like that, making it harder and take much longer than it should. Oh, that's a great idea. Trade being blown up in combat for the ability to ship goods quickly. That sounds like a great trade. If you're suicidal, freaking geezer, they shouted back and forth at each other as Mika and Raimi approached. Well, I didn't expect to see you two out here. I thought you would have taken the datapad elsewhere, gone home perhaps, or found a nice bar to drink in while you do this. No way, the young engineer, who said her name was Mika, said. When you're an engineer, presence is everything. At first I thought it might be a bit of a boring task, but after seeing this ship's capabilities, it's an engineer's daydream. A ship that can alter itself on every fundamental level, changing its form and status whenever it wants. It's a wet dream. And there's no better place to be when you're working on something like that than at the location. Ugh. Well, I hate to agree with her, but in this instance she's correct. The older gentleman, claiming his name was Oscar, replied. Maybe you can sort this out, Captain. We have two different design aesthetics. Perhaps you could tell us which one you want to go with, he said, handing forward the datapad. Mika grasped it and began to look over the information. As he suggested, there were two separate designs that had been input into the system. One was more in class with a high maneuverability battleship, while the other far more stressed defense and overall functionality in all aspects. The one with the higher combat capability stuck closer to the arrowhead-style design that exovol already had, while the one that stressed defense seemed to take more of a diamond shape, and each one had readouts for offensive capabilities, defensive capabilities, and the capabilities of other things like energy consumption, dock accessibility, and other such variables. But the shape differential wasn't really the primary source of the problem. It was the dispersal of armament across the surface of the vessel. The diamond shape simply allowed a far more effective cover range, allowing an even division of the weapons and armament across the entirety of the ship that could focus in basically any direction. However, this drastically affected the maneuverability of the ship, while the faster, more nimble model did exactly what it would suggest, giving heightened speed, agility, and maneuverability. But the problem was, the format limited the weapons range, leaving some blind spots where enemies could slip in, and made it less effective at firing at enemies from behind. As Mika looked it over, It was a difficult choice. Both designs had their benefits. Neither one of them was really wrong.